That's the sound of almost 200 years of history, but you might not know that Mission San Luis Obispo de Tolosa bells are rung by hand. The original bells were brought over from Peru in 1820 and were replaced in 2005 as the old bells were starting to crack. While the bells are relatively new, the old traditions remain the same.
I got involved ringing the bells in 2005 when they were ordering the brand new set of bells.
Michael Lafreniere, whose mom and grandma also ring the bells, is a part of the group of volunteer bell ringers. Ringing the bells is a family tradition and a community tradition. A piece called a call to mass plays before each service.
And what's interesting about that pattern is it was passed down through the generations. So it was something that the Spanish taught the natives, and the natives rang the bells up until the late 1800s. And then we had a bell ringer who rang the bells from 1891 until the 1950s.
While some missions have automated bells or have bells and just don't ring them, the slow mission continues to fill downtown with beautiful bell melodies.
I hope that we continue with what we have now, a small group of people that rotate and donate their time to ring the bells, because that's really what keeps the tradition alive.
The new bells will need to be rotated in 2045 to prevent cracking. Springtime allergies are in full bloom. Thanks to a rainy winter and an increase in winds, pollen and other plant debris is blowing around. Allergies happen because the body treats the flying pollen as foreign and releases antibodies to fight it. San Luis Obispo has many plants, so it has lots of pollen. Often students don't realize how bad their allergies are until they get to slow.
At home, it wasn't that bad. I honestly didn't take allergy medicine. I just kind of suffered for like a month and then it went away. And here it got so bad that I started taking allergy medicine, but none of them worked. So I went to an allergist, and then I got allergy tested, and I'm basically allergic to the outdoors.
Experts say SLO is an epicenter for allergens.
Allergies are the response to pollinating plants, and this year, for the first time in many years, we had a lot of rain, so a lot of plants are growing. For the same reason that we are enjoying the beauty of the super bloom. Super bloom is doing its best to spread more plants, so it's spreading more pollen.
There is really no way to stop spring from happening, but there are ways to treat your symptoms. The best ways to handle the flower powder, according to WebMD, it is to close your windows and doors and clean your air filters. For Mustang News, Emily Hilsinger. Freshman architecture students took over Poly Canyon in an annual design competition. Students had to carry all of their materials out to the canyon and construct temporary shelters within 12 hours and live in them for the weekend. This year's Design Village theme was synthesis.
Prompt was talking a lot about sensory experiences and tying into the landscape. So as we kind of came up here on the first day of studio, we looked around and we were in this canyon, but also with these peaks surrounding us. So we felt that we were kind of synthesizing the forms of the landscape around us into the form that we were inhabiting for this competition.
The public was able to check out the completed structures on Saturday and vote for which ones they like the best.
The thing is that in architecture, there's no right answer. Anything can be bad, anything can be cool, but the main thing is, how do you gain the appeal of the masses? That's where it gets tricky.
Students from Cal Poly were just participating, while students from over 20 community colleges were competing. But for all students, it was really about the learning experience.
My favorite things is just being around all these people that you've known throughout the year, and now you get to spend a night camping in these awesome structures that everyone created, using hundreds of hours, and really the learn by doing Cal Poly motto.
For Mustang News, Emily Hilsinger. 8 World War II and 15 Korea veterans are returning from a trip to Washington, D.C. Fellow veterans and community members gather to greet those who served back home.
2, 3,
The event is put on by Honor Flight Central Coast, a local group that sends about 60 veterans to the national capital a year.
We've taken over 200 veterans from the Central Coast back to DC, and every one of those veterans is now getting a welcome home from the local members of the community.
The welcome captures the welcome home that veterans got in the 1940s and 50s. Only 2% of the 16 million World War II veterans got that welcome when they came home in their time. But 70 years later, in Washington, D.C., they got to check out the memorials built in their honor.
The World War II memorial was fantastic. The Vietnam memorial was fantastic. Every memorial I looked at was fantastic. So it was a fantastic trip.
Some memories from the trip: surprise visits from family members for some of the veterans, meeting those who currently serve, and school children coming up to them thanking them for their service. But tonight's airport surprise?
Surprise is a surprise of surprises. It was lovely. I enjoyed it. Oh my goodness! I didn't know that so much patriotism. It was amazing.
The local welcome home happens 4 times a year, and the next one will be this fall. For Mustang News, Emily Hilsinger.
Cal Poly Baseball took on UC Riverside in a 3-game series over the weekend. Friday, the Mustangs dominated at Baggett Stadium with a 12-3 victory. Saturday, the Mustangs brought that same energy. Poly's center fielder Bradley Beasley helping the Mustangs score 3 points in the first inning. Junior right-hander Bobby A., who is 8-1 this season, got 6 hits over 6 2/3 innings, allowing 2 runs, 1 walk, and 9 strikeouts, just 1 shy of his career high. Third baseman Nick DiCarlo preventing UC Riverside from tying the game with a tag of third base for the first out of the 8th inning. Mustangs winning the second match against the Highlanders with a score of 7-4. Cal Poly lost its 3rd game against UC Riverside on Sunday, 4-5. This puts the Mustangs at 15-6 in the season.
A group of Cal Poly students spruced up a local homeless shelter. Members of the Center for Service and Action took to the walls of 40 Prado Shelter. The shelter opened last October, and the Student Community Service Group added a colorful scene to one of the blank walls. The mural is a design similar to Slow's landscape.
We really wanted to make sure, like, when you entered somewhere, you saw, like, see bright colors and something that was kind of like reminded you of Slow or like home, right? And so we really wanted to do sort of a Slow background with the natural, the clouds and the iconic Slow mountains.
Painting for a few hours, it was part of their Homeless Awareness Week event. Other events for the Awareness Week included a food drive, water bottle drive, and community barbecue.
Pismo Beach, getting some cosmetic changes in the past few years, with a new multi-million-dollar pier restoration project, 2 new beachfront hotels, repaved sidewalks, and more trash cans to prevent litter. This cleaner look bringing in new visitors.
We've really been focused on, 1, cleaning up downtown. So that was as simple as putting in more trash cans, benches for people to sit, updating landscaping. And then we encouraged restaurants and hotel development on some vacant parcels that we had. In the last several years, we've opened 2 major resorts, the Inn at the Pier. Vespera Resort will open in likely September.
However, sometimes bringing in the new can push out the old. A moratorium or temporary ban was introduced in December 2017, and that puts a hold on tattoo shops and smoke shops from opening or relocating within the city.
Tiger Rose Tattoo Parlor, open for nearly 20 years, closing its doors in April. This because of an eviction by their landlord and not being allowed to reopen in Pismo Beach. And Tomasco's, a taffy store located on an iconic Pismo Beach corner for 30 years, is moving because of their lease ending and their landlord bumping up rent from $7,000 a month to $13,000. Being a part of the community since the 80s, the sweet store is a local staple.
those big businesses like that, they don't have a personality. The business doesn't have a personality. The people come here every year at the same time, and they want to see the same faces, the same owner of the building or the business. And when you get businesses like that with the big money, nobody's there. It's just workers.
But no matter how these changes will affect Pismo's culture, both City Council and local shops agree. One of Pismo's biggest challenges is parking.
The biggest problem right now is lack of parking.
The city trying to increase access to close-by parking with parking meters.
Having a paid parking program makes sure spaces are available. So we strive to make sure 15% of our spaces are always available. That's how we set the rate. So we can tell with a meter how often a space is available. So our businesses know parking will always be available on the street where they do business.
Tomasco's new location will be next to GB's Smoke Shop and Inn at the Pier. With summer tourism season just starting, how locals and tourists adapt to these changes will define the future of Pismo.
Here in Pismo Beach, Emily Hilsinger. Back to you.
Rainbows, love, and more. Community members coming out to Heritage Square Park in Arroyo Grande to celebrate LGBT Pride. For all ages and all identities, this the first Pride celebration for South County. The event a way for community members to find support through a resource fair focusing on LGBTQIA+ needs. Kicking off the start of Pride Month, activities include a youth lounge with arts and crafts, church allies, food vendors, and local entertainment. For some, this their own first Pride celebration.
This is my first Pride. I'm here to support my girlfriend and get to see Miss Juicy in action and feel all the love that's here.
Hosted by Five Cities Hope, event organizers say they are trying to bring more LGBT resources to South County.
Growing up in the Five Cities area, board members of Five Cities Hope felt a lack of LGBT resources and wanted to change that. Relying on grassroots funding efforts, community and ally support in planning the event since last year, organizers excited to see it all come together.
We have a lot of youth here in the South County, specifically middle school and high school students, that it's very hard to get to Santa Maria and San Luis sometimes. So to have it here and to have it at a park in some place that's so central to the village, we just made it super accessible, and we have a ton of teens here that are also part of our youth group that we started. So it's nice to have that support for them.
The Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation says that for the millennial age group, 20% identify as LGBT and 12% as transgender or gender nonconforming. For Mustang News, Emily Hilsinger.